Hello and welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Bryan Steele and I will be your nerd today and any other day that you watch my little show. Alright, so Week in Bryan. Let's talk. We got to play I played two gaming wise. I played two different D&D games this week since last we talked. I got to play my Waking Realms game, where I'm the Capoeira cat monk, and we are getting ready to get into some gnarly stuff. We vanquished the rest of the bad guys and realized that there is possibly one big final nasty bad guy at the church in the town, and we're gonna see what happens. But we decided that we needed to kind of not rest so much, because it's kind of a moving from one engagement to the next. But it's more on the lines of we needed to come up with an idea of how we're going to use the resources we've got as we head in to what might end up being the final boss. And then also got to play in my wife's D&D game that she's running, that she's DMing in her own world, that she calls the Land of Monsters. And we had a great time. It was mostly, it started off with a lot of in-town shopping and haggling and negotiating and selling the loot from the last mission and, that kind of stuff. Getting in character, but we had a good time. It was a lot of fun. And then where we thought, and this is one of those things where when she is, this is the first time that she's ever DM'd anything. And this is her first world that she's created. This is her first, adventures that she's creating from scratch, and it was awesome. We were doing our shopping and walking around and doing all that stuff, and one of the places that we were told to stop in town, like one of those, hey, you'll get the most, the most money out of, you don't want to sell it at this place, you want to sell it at this place. And we went to go do this, and they were like, oh, they're downstairs. And so we go downstairs, and we literally walked right into this crazy scene between what we thought was a monster and another person, and we chased them down and found out that they weren't a monster, but that, that there's a secret door in the place. And, like, it leads into this dungeon underneath this building that we went to, just thinking that it was going to be part of like a regular everyday. Again, we were in the middle of just selling stuff and finding out what what some of our loot did and all that kind of stuff, and then boom, secret door opens up into this whole new area of unexpected adventure. And it's awesome. Like that is something that I miss out of D&D and out of some role-playing games, is the unexpected gotcha moment. And this literally was one of those gotcha moments. Was we deal with this situation where there's this monster and it's not a monster, and then we turn around, and as soon as it's not a monster, then we find out, oh hey, we gotta go find this secret door. We find the secret door thinking that it's just gonna be like a person behind there, like in a secret closet or an item or something, and it turns out to be more adventure. It's awesome. I'm super proud of her. She's doing a great job. Played some video games professionally. I'm doing normal everyday stuff, working on some Shadowrun fiction, doing some audiobook stuff. Warzone's always pushing forward. I'm actually thinking, I just got done painting a kind of a larger set of demo figs, because I'm doing some demoing or doing some playtest games this weekend with one of the playtesters, and these models I think we've actually shown before, so I think I might take some pictures of them and put them on online, just to show people, hey, there's cool stuff still happening, get people talking, that kind of thing. Yeah, working on. I have a meeting actually later today to talk about my next Renegade project, and that's pretty much it. Personally, getting ready for Thanksgiving's this week, so gonna make some cool food, gonna eat some cool food, hang out with family, probably play some cards or something afterwards. Just kind of a basic everyday, is a normal week in Bryan. You'll note by me wearing my amazing Turbo Dork Scully cap that winter has come. Winter has definitely come to Indiana, and it's cold. So I'm wearing my stocking cap indoors because my heater is not currently on. And well, I mean, it is on for the whole house. My actual studio heater is not on, so it's kind of chilly in here. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, week in Bryan wise. Yeah, so let's move into the meat of today's episode, and that is actually today is a Q&A with a gamer. Today's Q&A with a gamer number 3 with a gentleman by the name of William, or Bill, as I know him. Bill is a video gamer from a long time ago, or from a long time. He is a role player relatively recently. He only recently got into the pen and paper, tabletop style role-playing games, and I figured that his questions and his part of this kind of back and forth Q&A with a gamer style thing might be kind of a cool approach. Someone who's relatively not new to gaming, but newer to tabletop games, might have some cool insight to talk about and some neat questions to ask and discuss. So without further ado, let's find out what Bill has to say. Hello. You guys just saw me a second ago, but we have someone new here that I would like to introduce you to. So why don't you take center stage, my friend?
Hello, my name is Bill. I am new to the tabletop RPG realm. Developed my enjoyment of RPGs through video games and have made the leap to tabletop.
That is the primary reason we have asked Bill to join us today for our third Q&A with a gamer. Basically, I've known Bill now for a little over a couple of years, I think now at this point, 2 years.
Might even be longer.
Might be 3. Right before COVID got weird.
3. Yeah, about 3.5 years.
Little background: Bill married my wife's bestest friend. They're all romantic and weird. They're still newlyweds. But in the interim, we spent a lot of time together. We go do trivia at the local bar, and there's all these little things that kind of went back and forth. And at one point, Natalie looked at me and said, "Do you think Bill and Jackie would want to play D&D with us?" And I said, "I have no idea. Ask them." And I don't remember how that conversation came about. It may have just been an easy, over beers and board games, just kind of, hey, by the way.
Yeah.
And now Bill and his wife Jackie are in my wife's first ever D&D game that she's running her own world and everything. And it's cool. They've taken to it like a fish of water.
She is running beautifully, by the way. You should be very proud.
I am.
We have had a wonderful time.
I'm super glad. And I'm eventually, when she gets around to actually seeing these videos, she'll be glad to hear that too.
Wonderful. Also, everyone, happy Thanksgiving. Got a little turkey time on my shoulder for everyone.
Correct. So for all of the American viewers out there, happy Thanksgiving. For all of the non-American viewers, happy Thursday. Or, well, I guess Thursday would be, but when you see this, it will be after that. Happy past feasting day, or whatever you want to call it.
Happy regular day during the week.
Yeah, happy work day where other people are celebrating things for you guys.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into it. As with every other Q&A with the gamer, I've asked the gamer in question to jot down a handful of questions that to start a potential. Oh, he's got his electronic on his phone.
Yes, sir.
To start a dialogue and maybe pass on some cool information to you guys at home or on a bus or at work or jogging, wherever you're watching this weird show that I do. So, all right, let's get into it. What you got for me, Bill?
All right. So, let's start with one that actually involves you. Because most of my questions are going to be revolving around character and character development and how you deal with that. And to start, we'll just go with, where did you get started in regards to characters? Like, do you have anything you base them off of as when you started playing? Did you base them off shows that you really liked or life experience?
Okay, that's awesome. That's a really good question. If you roll back to my early days of like early role playing days, like middle school, high school, a lot of my characters didn't have much in the way of characterization other than I want to be a vampire. I want to be can I be the guy with the big axe? I didn't really think about the character so much as what they could do. It was almost like video game mentality.
Okay.
What does my guy do when I hit this button? But then as things progress further, and my personal imagination ran wild, and some of the character concepts that I would come up with would be just completely and utterly off the wall. It became more about what I want to portray at the table. The powers, the dice, the numbers, that all stuff will fit in at some point. But one of my most like the character I remember playing the longest, it was actually a live action role playing character. I played him for 6 or 7 years. We had games every other month, and like it was a pretty solid character that I based him on nothing. Like he was literally a character that came out of nowhere, but I named him after a character out of a novel. I literally just stole the name right out of the book, because that guy had vampire stuff and I had vampire stuff, so the name would fit. And after the first 6-8 months of playing the character, I realized that it had nothing to do. I literally just grabbed a name because I wasn't thinking about it. I didn't think that this was going to go very far. And I remember running into people at games later on that they were like, "Oh, big Ryan Lumley fan, are you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess I am." It just didn't really, it really didn't click with me. But as I think I've gotten more characters under my belt at this point, hundreds from different games and things. I think I draw inspiration from there will be either scenes that I see in comic books and movies and TV, or for me personally, it'll be a scene that I want to see. And sometimes I get to flex that in like the stories that I write and things like that. So professionally, if there's a particular scene that I want to see unfold, and I don't want to do it at my own role playing table because I don't want to be the guy that's like, okay, all of you just sit and watch my NPCs do this cool thing that I want them to do. It'll end up in a short story. It'll end up in a novel, something like that. But some of those scenes are things that I've either dreamt about or daydreaming, and it comes together and I go, oh man, that would be really cool. I would love to see that on a big screen, or I would love for one of my favorite DC characters to do this. And then I go, all right, since I'm not writing for the movies and I'm not writing for TV, I've got to do my best, my next best thing. And that's how I ended up, how I end up trying to build those characters to create those scenes, if it ever comes together. If that makes any sense.
It does.
At all.
It does. And obviously this is, Q&A, but I'm beginning, and it's nice to hear where people that have been further into it go with their character development.
Okay.
As someone who's just begun, one of the things I also had is on all my questions and leading into that, and I'm glad you brought it up, was character development through a campaign, where as someone who is just starting out, how do you deal with maybe you wanted your character to go this way, but as you play, you find yourself wanting to go this way. And, you've, at least for me, I've really gotten into the creative writing of the backstory for my character.
Yeah.
Well, how do you balance the changing of your character and the growth that is your character? And we had a game and we had a back and forth about that where I was, the all loving. And then I was like, well, it's kind of morphed into something else at this point based on the family we have. And how do you try to keep your character on track throughout different feelings of that day? Like you had a bad day and I just want to smash, or you had a good day and you want to be playful and fun. How do you try to keep your character on track?
I was gonna say, sometimes you almost there's been lots it's easier when you're a dungeon master than a player, because as a dungeon master, I since you get to set the stage, if I had a day where I'm like, you know what, I really just want blood and carnage and spells exploding, then it's going to be a combat game, and you're hi, I'm the bandit on the side of the road, guys, let's take him hostage. No, he's going to try and kill everybody, you need to try and fight him. Like you might be able to push that. As a player, it's a little harder because if you're in that situation, you really are, you had a rough day, you're like, I'm not here to, I'm not feeling like being the bardic jester. I really kind of just want to slap some goblins around. And if the DM or the GM isn't set up for that, it can be a little jarring. If you've got that one player who's just really itching for a fight, it might be a little harder to do. But as far as like just as a player trying to push yourself into those positions, I think the best thing to do, honestly, is, I mean, in any situation when it comes to a role-playing game, is communication between the players and the GM. Is if you're having that kind of day where like you get to the table and you're just like, I am itching for a clobberin', I'm waiting for those magic words of roll initiative.
Yeah.
If you might not need to make it a public thing, but even if you just let the DM know, be like, listen, my brain is not really with it today for real deep problem solving, or I know I normally am, full of jokes and laughter. I'm the comedian at the table, but I had a rough day and I'm not going to be all that, please do not be hanging on my every word, waiting for a punchline, because it's probably not coming. As long as everybody else at the table realizes that's coming, or the DM can kind of prepare for it in the back of their brain. We all have, I mean, just like in real life, we all have bad days and good days. Your character can have that too. The only difference with that is that because in the role playing game, when the last session ended, everyone kind of goes on pause and sort of freezes in place. It's a little more jarring because when they unpause, suddenly I'm in a cranky mood. But if anything, it makes them a little more lifelike if they have some mood swings and unless the whole character is completely monotone, that's the whole point of the character. But generally speaking, we're all living critters, and as the player gets, or the character unfolds, they can also have good days and bad days. And hell, depending on the campaign and the scenario involved, it might actually end up being a cool scene of 2 or 3 sessions down the road, that bard that goes, hey guys, remember when we were in the goblin village and you guys were telling me that it could be talked through, and I said hell no, and I shot the guy in the face? I regret that now. You guys were right, I'm super sorry. Maybe in the future I'll listen to you more. You can have those I'm sorry moments. You can have those character moments. Or if you want to drum up, even if it has nothing to do with you on a real life level, like you just want to come up with something for your character to have a little more flesh on their bones, mentally and emotionally speaking. There's nothing wrong with trying to grab a scene and basically telling a character, hey, this is what's going on in my head right now, I love you guys, or hey, let's not burn the village down.
So speaking to that, and if you don't mind, are you okay if I bring in the game that we're both involved in
Yeah, not a
into
problem.
this? So I had a moment like that while I was doing it, I couldn't portray why I was doing it because we were in the heat of battle. You were there. I am Dredge, Loxodon Barbarian, and basically a tank, which is hard to do in D&D. It's hard to draw fire. There was a tunnel that no one could get past anybody, and I was in the front, but the people behind could use ranged attacks. And as a barbarian who wanted to be a tank, which is hard to do in D&D, to concentrate fire, I was able to do that, and it flushed out my character to me as now caring more about his companions than he thought he could. How do you deal with players who might not see it that way and get upset that you're not letting them into the fight, where to you it is a character developing moment?
So I would say the biggest thing is you got to find out whether or not it is the character that is being grumpy about being stuck in the back of the line, or if it's a player being grumpy. If it's a player being grumpy, then you just literally have to talk to him. You lay it out and go, my character was trying to save the day. I was trying to take the hits for everybody because I didn't think that you guys could handle it. We know each other better now, so forth and so on. If it was the character in the back of the in this case, my character's in the back shaking his fist, hey, I'd like to get up there and hit some stuff too, then that can just be an in-character conversation where basically, the Dredge can just look at them and go, this is what I was trying to protect you guys from getting stabbed by the horrible things. And it worked out that time, but I'll think about it in the future. There's always, there can be that conversation. The big thing is whether or not it's a player being grumpy with your decisions, and if it's a character. If it's a character being grumpy, whatever, you figure that out in game. If it's a player, then that's something that you actually do need to talk to. You got to let them know that I'm not trying to steal your thunder. It wasn't like I wanted the scene to be all me. This is what I thought my character would do in this instance. And since then, we've already noted that that's not the case. So the game's already moved on, and hopefully there isn't any ill will.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I don't believe so. But I think that that's a different. Even if that situation was specific, that kind of goes for just about any sort of inter-party conflict or disagreement, is whether or not it's coming from the character standpoint or if it's coming from the fact that the player is grumpy about something that you're doing. The character standpoint, that can be role played through 1,000 times over. The player standpoint, that needs to be something that just needs to be discussed. That needs to be because you don't want bad blood at the table between players, between player and the GM. If you've got multiple GMs, it does happen, between the two GMs having bad blood. You don't want that ever, because that just creates more tension and it snowballs into worse game sessions down the road. But if it's a character disagreement, oh hell, you can get entire role-playing sessions out of a party arguing about what to do. Just depending on everybody's passions and which way they lean, especially depending on certain games. I've had vampire games that were supposed to, as a storyteller, you look at it and go, all right, I think they'll get through this scene, and this scene, and they never make it past the first one because the entire scene is them arguing in a bar. And you look down and you're like, it's midnight, guys. We got to go. Game's over. I guess we'll pick this up next time on scene 2.
That doesn't happen to us at our games either.
Yeah, we don't get held up all that time.
Exactly. And so a couple of my other questions are less about character development and building your character, but more about coming into it as a new player, and your take on some of the advantages in, say, like D&D Beyond with their beautiful digital system and using analog, and and I guess really the crux of it is, do you think digital or analog character sheets are better, or do you see any difference for a new player in how they not just immerse themselves in the game, but can immerse themselves in the lore, and then not just that, but the functions of certain things?
That's a great question. Like really good question. I think like trying to think of it. There's no easy answer to that.
Well,
Um,
and I can kind of expound on that. The other one of the other players in our team, who's a very seasoned player in our squad, our campaign troop, don't know the exact terminology, likes to stay analog. Whereas me and my wife, we play digitally. I've noticed some of the things that, because unfortunately, when I wrote this question, I didn't think about it all the way through until I wrote my second question, which was about flashcards. He
oh,
had
okay.
used flashcards to write down his spells and where he was, and had little cheat sheets for the analog. And I realized that, and I kind of put you on the spot, I don't think there's a better way to do it than a mixture of both.
I was
Because
gonna
those
say,
flashcards, it took him 2 seconds to go, I want to cast this, here it is, this is what it does, this is what I roll. Where my wife has some spells and she would go through and have to click and read and, okay, where is it put, where what I roll, is this at will, do I need to roll for a hit? And his was all right there, same order, beautifully
mm,
done. It took him no time at all. And I know I personally would feel bad because it would take me forever to figure out what, outside of rage,
what do I do?
what
All
I
right.
want to cast. Yeah, let me read this one. Hold on, guys, because I don't have anything shorthand. So I, I, it kind of answers my question, but I think it's a combination of both, and using both tools in whatever way that helps you to make your
Absolutely.
decisions and be smooth with it.
So I think it also comes down to how familiar you are with the ins and outs of the system. So for me, I prefer to have an analog character sheet, but then I will always have my phone or something nearby so I can look up a spell real fast to get the exact wording. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think having the digital resource is nice, and obviously it's ignored in the case of distance gaming. Like if you're playing over Zoom or you're playing over, that's a completely different animal. It's almost impossible to have analog stuff and have a digital game. But like gaming in person, um, I think it definitely helps new players to have um, something like D&D Beyond that does a lot of the calculation for you. Uh, but I also think that it ends up becoming a crutch if you never learn what those calculations actually are. If you just go, the system will do it for me, then you never have to worry about it, and you never learn how those numbers come together. This, for instance, I was actually helping a new DM recently, putting together. They were trying to figure out some of the stuff that one of their NPCs on D&D Beyond can do, and they were like, it's got this difficulty number here. How did that come together? And I was like, oh, it's 8 plus proficiency modifier plus their spellcasting ability. Well, how do you know that? And I was like, well, I know that because I've read the book and I've built a character on paper, so I know how to
Mm-hmm.
make those numbers. And that dawns on me that the more automation we put into this, the less likely that a brand new player is going to need to learn all of those little equations and calculations, which makes it easier for them to play. But if that resource isn't there, or if for some reason there's something that they can't do online, like there's something that their GM gives them a special magic item that needs to be calculated, manually, for lack of a better term, they're going to have a hard time knowing how to do that because the software has done it all for them. If you look at
Yeah.
someone and go, "Hey, how many third level spells do you get?" I don't know. It just tells me how many slots I click on the button and it tells me when to stop. Oh, how hard do you hit? I don't know. Well, it says here I got a +8 to hit. Well, where's that coming from? They have no idea because it's just getting calculated for them. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the drawback to the digital age, is that it's doing so much for the newer
Yeah.
players. They never need to learn the system, and
Uh,
then they get stumped when the system on the spot changes or something gets referred to that they can't just click a button on.
I will say, with the digital age and being able to do all those things, it allows someone like me who came from video games where everything is calculated for you, except for the backstory. You know, your backstory, well, it is calculated for you, but it may not be what you want it to be.
Yeah.
Where when I was able to create my first character, Dredge, I wrote a page and a half and was like, well, I can't give that to my DM. So let me make it a page. I'm getting a little too crazy with this development of a character. And it was kind of nice to where I didn't have to stress about figuring all those things out. And I could concentrate on, okay, what kind of character does Dredge, what kind of character is Dredge?
Yeah.
What is my persona in this world with my first official character with actual, you know, rules with 5e, be it 5e or 3.5 or, you know, any other set of rules. Everything I did in high school thinking D&D was kind of fun was never officially based. It was just go.
Yeah.
So I will say that's kind of nice as someone that is coming into it not ignorant of the system, ignorant of what role play is, or, you know, what's happening, the mechanics of the game, but not understanding every nuance of the equations. Having that there was actually helpful for me to where it just did kind of that stuff for me so I could invest myself more in my character.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So yeah, I enjoyed that, and I've tried to read my sheet more analog than digital and just use the plus or minus instead of an eraser. And kind of read about, okay, I have an advantage here. It says I do, but why? So then I'll go through and read my things and be like, why do I have this advantage? What did I do that got me this? What, you know, is it just my trade or what is it that has done this for me? So I've enjoyed the digital, but I think there's a lot of proficiencies in analog that I don't have. And with one of the mini characters I have in the works right now, even though I'm only playing one official game, I think that would be very helpful with my warlock that I'm working on.
Spellcasters. So they a couple of different companies sell decks of cards that have spells on them. Like they basically they print the spells out of the books on flashcards themselves. I own a couple of the decks. I think that those are super helpful. Having the nice list of like where to look them up real fast is fine. And honestly, once you know what one of the spells if once you've cast it 5 or 6 times and you know what it does, you stop looking it up. You know, we know what, you know, Toll the Dead does. We know what, you know, Word of Radiance does. I might need to look at what my difficulty is or the range or like one of those little things. But like when it comes to the detail of it, it's more or less ingrained. But a lot of those kind of offhand weird spells, or in the case of if you're playing a class that maybe has to pick at spells every day from a very big list, having those flashcards are really handy because you can just flip through and go, ooh, I like that one, and set it off to the side. You know, so you don't have to erase dots and scratch things out and keep this big long list ready. You just basically pull out the cards that you know for that day, and then keep track of how many spells you've cast, and that's it.
I think the digital is also helpful because I've noticed, at least when we play together, it's generally you're like, oh, I printed off my character sheet again. So you do one session analog, take it digital, and then our next session you'll print it off again. So you don't have, you know, a million eraser marks and things like that.
I generally try to only print that off if there's been major changes. Like if we level up or if you get like a pile of loot, I'll put that into the digital and reprint it. But I don't normally reprint every time, just because that's a lot of paper. Yeah,
that is. And then my last question was, when you started out, how many characters did you build within, say, a month? When you found your enjoyment of D&D, not just playing with your friends, but when you were like, you know what, I really enjoy doing this. I can say we've had 4 sessions now, and I've created a new character, not for our game, but just because based on this, this would be kind of fun. I've created a new character once a month.
you are scratching the creation itch.
Yeah.
And what you are doing is super normal. There's all kinds of memes in like role playing game communities on Facebook and stuff constantly about the pile of extra characters that people have. There's TikToks that people will do on D&D TikTok that literally is, so I made another character today that I'll never play. You know,
Yep.
I've got folders full of characters that someday it will come up and it'll be the perfect moment. And so you are not alone.
Okay.
By any stretch of the imagination.
My biggest issue is I have another character. I have a name for this one. Is Gorn, and I really want to play Gorn, and I am worried that I will put myself in situations that Dredge would not, just in case I can go down to play Gorn. And I don't like that because that's not Dredge, and I'm fighting that.
I love that you have that kind of dichotomy in your head, because there are I'm not gonna call him out, Chris. If you watch this, you know who you are.
Dang it, Chris.
We know when Chris is getting tired of a character, because we'll be playing, or rather, maybe he's not getting tired of character, but he's got a new idea that he wants to play, because suddenly the coward becomes brave, the smart guy starts doing dumb things, like don't worry guys, I'll take third watch, I don't need anybody's help, like just one of those, what are you doing? I'll run into the room first. You have 3 hit points. It's okay. It'll be safe. We realize that, he's trying to get into that move. And it used to be a joke of, you're getting yourself killed off so you can play a new character.
Yes.
It has.
And I don't want to do that to my character, because I do love my character, but it's hard because I'm finding these other characters that I also do the creative bit. I write, and I was like, oh man, this is kind of, and the more I play, the more I do it. It's like, oh, I wish I could have done this, but that's not Dredge. I wish I could have done this. Oh, but I don't have spells or anything like that. So let me create this hybrid warlock, and how do we create this minotaur?
So there are two real honest. There's 2 honest answers, and there's a third less realistic answer. The first and foremost is that if you want to take a break from a character, like you literally are like, I've got this really cool idea that I want to do, I just want to try them out.
Do you mind if I run to the restroom real quick, sir?
Depending us right now.
Restroom.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I will right. Keep talking. You be right back.
Okay, I will have my headphones. I will listen.
Oh, okay. So we lost Bill. We can talk about him. No. So let's see what we were saying before, because I don't want to forget what Bill was talking about as far as that goes. But his original question was, how many characters did I make? In early days, in the early times, I did not. I really just focused on one. I was very like one per game, one guy. This is what I was going to be. But as time moved on and I started getting into more and more games, I would absolutely build just a stack of characters and just wait for the perfect moment to grab. I don't know if Bill knows, but his mic's hot.
Well, that's very unfortunate.
I can probably cut part of that out.
I had clicked mute, but it didn't actually mute me. If anyone wondered what the toilet sounds like, there you go.
Yeah, well, you know what? We know that you have indoor plumbing.
Yes.
You do not live in a weird Amish community. Although I shouldn't be mean. I shouldn't be mean, because if there are any Amish watching, they're going to look at me and be like, "Seriously, we're weird." But I guess if they're Amish watching this,
they're not watching this.
All right. So as I was saying,
tangent.
Yeah, whew. As I was saying, yeah, no, I used to do all kinds of characters, and I would always look for that perfect moment, that opportunity
Mhm.
to be like, okay, narratively, and I would always, I was never the person that wanted to get a character killed. I was always the one that would look at the DM and go, I want a narrative way out. If you need to kill me, you can do it, but make it serve the story. Make it be the big bad steals me, kidnaps my character. Make it,
Okay.
or if you want me to, if we need to go out that way, let me go out in a blaze of glory where I like grab the bad guy and jump off a cliff. I don't even care if the bad guy comes back. Just give me some. Don't just make me suddenly wake up one night and there's a note on the counter that says, sorry guys, this wasn't for me. Look for my friend the artificer Steve. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was always I wanted to work with the DM to try and work that character out. If it meant a couple of extra sessions of playing that character to get it up to that point, that was fine, so long as I knew I was kind of working my way towards this new concept. But I am not one for try and get a guy killed so you can play somebody new.
What I gather from that is, and a lot of the things you said is, don't be afraid to have a dialogue, not just with your DM after a session, but also with the other players.
Oh yeah,
So, in speaking to when I stood in the wall, and make sure maybe another player was a little perturbed, but not as angry as their player character was. Maybe they expounded on their anxiousness to get in the fight, and I would find that fine because I would be the same way. But just make sure to talk about those things so hey, did this action actually upset the player or the character? Did
yeah.
this is oh DM, I want to try to do this, and maybe they can, maybe they can't work with you in that. At least it could take some time, but
It
the dialogue is the big thing that I've taken away from this conversation so far. So
communication is absolutely the most key. I've said this before, that role playing games are not. I mean, they can be if you're going into an event that way, but they're not a competitive thing. It's not about my character being better than the other characters. It's not about me killing more goblins than you. It's not about the DM paid more attention to me than the rest of everyone else. The spotlight was all on me. It's a group effort. It's a team game. Even if your characters aren't a team, they might be at each other's throats, in game. But when it comes to collectively, our point of being there is to tell the story, whether it's in each individual piece, and then of course the DM story. The DM's a big part of that too. But collectively, for us to make sure that we get from point A to point eventually Z without ruffling too many personal feathers along the way. And if everybody kind of keeps pushing towards that goal and getting there in some fashion, then we win. We win role playing is as long as the story is told. And if we all die in a ball of fire, then we all die in a ball of fire, and then the next session is maybe 2 years down. That's actually one of my favorite things when a TPK does happen, when an entire party does get murdered, and it's just bad decisions were made and things happen, is pause and like you have everybody make new characters, and as a DM you go, okay, here's the setting, and you tell them the setting, but it's a little they don't just basically meet in the tavern the day after or something like that. You pick it up and it's like a year later, and those adventurers have now been either forgotten in the mines of wherever, or maybe their bodies were found and actually like buried, and one of these characters maybe knew one of the old characters from the old thing, and they came to pay their respects. Or there's a way to continue the adventure, tie it in a little bit without it being just kind of a shoehorn of, all right, 6 new dudes show up and it's the same layout as before, you got hired to do this thing. You can find a way to make that happen. It's much easier if you do it one at a time. Like one character moves in and changes the story to become a new person, and so forth and so on. But it's always about talking to the storyteller, talking to the DM, and finding a way to make that work. Because the last thing you want to do as a player, the last thing you should want to do as a player is completely derail the DM where they have to basically shut down a game and go, I don't know where to go because of what happened. It does happen occasionally, even as a DM, where you go, we need to pause because I don't know what, I don't know where we're going from there. Like I've had everything planned out for, north, south, and west. And you guys were like, nah, we're going to head over east. And you're like, no, the east is on fire. And you're like, I like fire, and so you go, we're going to head that direction. There's no harm in a DM saying, okay, let's pause. Next session, we'll pick. I'm not telling you not to do this. I'm not railroading you into, no, you must go to one of these other directions. I'm just saying I'm not ready for the fires of the east. So we'll walk, we'll stop, we'll talk about it. But to your point about, the communication between the players, it is one of the reasons why we haven't done it so much with our game, because we've got a teenager involved too. As soon as the game is over, they're like, I want to go do things with my friends. But I am a firm believer in when a game session is over, it shouldn't be just everyone pack up and go home. There should be a good half an hour, 45 minutes of cool off, downtime conversation, where it is talking about some of the stuff that just happened, telling people how cool that was, or, why the hell did you try and, mount that unicorn? Like, what was that all about? And you're like, well, I've got this, and then they could go, I've got this spell, and I thought that if I got on his back, I could fly with the unicorn. You're like, well, that's weird, but okay. If there's communication after the fact between the players and the DM is there listening, just knowing some motivations of why things happen can help build the next time the characters get together, the next time there's camaraderie between the characters, because even though it was we as players talking about it, we'll still always have that knowledge in the back of our head that says, okay, and as the player themselves or the character themselves, they might pick up a little bit of the body language. They might, I look back and we were sitting there focused on combat, smashing skeletons and things. And, but then after the session, someone says, so why the hell did you stay in that room so long? And you're like, dude, I was picking up every piece of metal in that room because I want to build you guys armor later. Mm-hmm. We don't have to role play that conversation for that to be part of, because how often do you go, all right, the day was uneventful. No one has if I was hanging out with my 5 friends, we don't ever have a truly uneventful day. There's going to be conversation, There's going to be meals, there's going to be a lot of jokes. Someone's probably going to get drunk. There's going to be these little things that you don't, there's going to be these little things that don't need to be role played. And then that's what I kind of think of when people are like, you have that conversation about what was your character up to? Unless someone specifically is like, now you don't know this, but I'm stealing all of the bones because I'm putting together my own miniature Dracolich, then you're probably gonna be like, okay, the gnome is terrifying. Let's stay away from the scary Draco, the scary gnome lich. He's trying to create a bone dragon.
He's doing the bad.
Yeah. But for the most part, those conversations are a good way to kind of understand the motivations between the characters, or it might just be something that someone didn't pick up because they were maybe they were trying to figure out what their spells are for the day and they missed something during conversation. Like they were reading they're like, I don't understand how insert random spell works, and they were reading it while these 2 characters were talking, and they missed a sentence. Maybe they missed the part where Dredge says something about, I hate having to kill animals. They miss it completely. We get into the next combat, and Korstar sees you that you're particularly trying to, you're taking penalties to knock people off of their horses instead of like just swinging wildly. And he's like, what are you doing? Just hit them. And you're like, I don't want to hurt the horse. I don't want to hurt the naked mole rat that my buddy's riding. Yeah. Like,
the animal didn't attack me. The man on the back did.
Yeah. And rather than spending more time on that, he might have just missed that part of the conversation. So after game discussing it, you can be like, oh, I know you didn't hear it the first time, but this is a thing that you would pick up from Dredge over the miles and miles that we walked together. You know, that's that. I think that's probably the biggest. The biggest thing is I think that a lot of role playing sessions, especially when dealing with adults like us. Notice I said adults and not grown-ups because we're super not grown up. That we have so much other stuff going on, and we got to get go home to get the dogs out and get ready for bed and wake up in the morning and go to work. We're always in go mode. So at the end of a game session, it's a lot of, all right, guys, that was super fun. See you later. Bye.
Yeah.
And I think that having that extra, because I remember when I was in high school, we would play for 6-7 hours at a time, and then spend the next like 2 or 3 talking about the game. And now, even though we don't have that time, I would still like to see, and I think it's good for a gaming group to have that sort of downtime, chill talk. In my games, I try to do that with my experience-based questions that I ask at the end of every session, which I think I've talked about them on the channel. I don't know if I have, maybe. But and I know it's something that Natalie wants to do with her game, but it's, again, we tend to be like, we play right up to the wire, and it's all right, we got to get going. So I think that might be something that maybe we try and institute, and ending a half an hour early so we have a half an hour of talking, and making sure that, like, the wound up teenager knows that when we're done playing, we're still going to hang out for a half an hour.
Yeah.
Don't just immediately sprint to the next thing you're going to do.
Well, it doesn't help when we get off on a tangent, just going back and forth about things that literally mean nothing in the realm. But it's fun. That's part of the fun of the game. So.
Exactly. Well, that's one of the biggest things is, you might not make as much progress in the story as you want to, and it can be frustrating for a DM. But if everybody is having a good time, those shenanigans, those extra, those 5 minutes of movie quotes back and forth, or, oh, hey, I know this isn't about the game, but I've got to tell you about this thing that I saw on the internet today. That's part of getting together and hanging out, and as long as everybody's having fun and being positive towards the collective, then, you're not doing it wrong. And I think that's the biggest, the key element is, so long as everybody, and that does include the DM, as long as everybody's having a good time, then you're winning at role playing.
Yep. Yeah, I've enjoyed. Our DM hasn't missed a beat, even when we do off the wall things that don't make sense, and she's been able to roll with it and continue a dialogue where there probably in her mind was not one before. A great example is, I wasn't from the area, and I just took a beer off a tray and drank it, and she was not ready for that, and you would not have known that based on her reaction. So I think having maybe not a seasoned DM necessarily, but someone that understands you kind of need to be ready for anything can be very helpful. And she's never broken character. Well, that's not true. She's been laughing a few times. We've done that with some I just can't. But outside of that, she's done an amazing job, and that's been very helpful, I think, for everyone as well. So
yeah. Well, I definitely I think that as she is a new GM, you guys are new gamers, or not new gamers, but new tabletop role players. Even Connor has only done it. He's only been in one other game before. I think that collectively, it can be the setup for disaster, but it really hasn't been. It's been, for the most part, things move forward at the right kind of pace. There's a lot of laughs. There's a lot of good times. And I would hope that I hope Natalie is having a good time too. And the last thing you want is your DM to think that it's work.
Yeah.
it is work being a DM, but you don't want them to feel like, oh, I'm running my game,
Yeah.
so I'm hoping, think she's always talking about wanting to run the next one, so we have that is a plus.
That's
Um,
all you can really hope for, I guess.
yeah. Now, did you have any other questions written down as far as like
The
anything
only
else you
other
wanted to?
the only other one is it doesn't really it kind of goes in the opposite way as so say someone and I haven't had this problem because like I said I have three other characters that I've been working on. I make one once a month, but for someone that gets into it and they make their character, say they base it off of them or whatever the case may be, they make the one. Unforeseen circumstances happen. As a seasoned player, how does would you take it if they made almost the same character again? How do you try to break away, not creating the same character that you just loved? And I
So
feel like that could be something because my Gorn is also a barbarian, but it's a completely different barbarian than what mine is now. I just enjoy barbarians because
it is it is much easier to not do that with the newer game system like 5e or some of the newer game systems have it worked into their character creation that makes it unless you really do just carbon copy. I make all the same decisions, I do all the same things. There's so many different versions of a barbarian now, or I want to play if I want to play an elven fighter, there's a multitude of different elven fighters I can be, where you will eventually find yourself kind of typecasting yourself into those sorts of things. One of my close friends, Dan, for the most part, I would probably say 80% of the characters he ever plays are halfling rogues. It's just that he loves playing a halfling rogue, but I've seen him play 20 different versions of the halfling rogue. Is it the Robin Hood? Is it someone who's completely self-centered? Is he a crossbowman? Is he but at the core elements, he really really just likes what the halfling rogue puts together. But occasionally he does branch out. What I think my only issue that I have when someone gets kind of typecast that way is not so much if you want to play the same kind of character in 10 different campaigns, whatever. Where I get into the issue is if your last character was a halfling rogue and he dies or whatever in game, and the next character you make is another halfling rogue, it can be kind of unrealistic. I know we're talking about halflings and dragons and things, but it can be kind of unrealistic for the rest of the party to suddenly be like, well, we lost our halfling rogue, so we went down to the store and bought a new one. Like
yeah.
it is easier to have the story of a completely new personality mesh in rather than in fact there's movies that have made jokes. Beer Fest makes the joke about the one character who dies and his twin brother shows up to the funeral and it's the exact same guy and he tells them to call me, let's honor my brother's name, go ahead and call me by my brother's name. I mean, it's a bigger joke. The Gamers movie, one of the first Gamers movies is they make a joke about the fact the bard dies constantly, and so he makes a file folder full of spoilers. He makes a file folder full of identical bards, and when they die, he just pulls another one out of the folder. And so, like, it is literally there's a line in there that I hide behind the pile of dead bards because in this scene 50 of them get killed and it's the exact same guy every time. So there is it kind of a gag to be like, Lothar is dead, my brother Rothar has shown up, I'll just take all this same equipment.
Yeah.
It kind of takes the sting out of any kind of challenge the characters might have felt. If your replacement is the exact same thing, it's almost as if you didn't die. It's almost as if you didn't suffer that loss if they just are right there again. But if you want to keep playing the same kind of character across the board, rock and roll.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you're having a good time and your fellow players are enjoying what you're doing, you'll probably get the occasional ribbing of, oh, another Loxodon barbarian, you know, or you know, you might this barbarian is this kind of guy. You might get a little jab here and there after the 4th or 5th version, but you're also going to probably get the same. You'll get the same jab the time that wizard casts, you know, when the warlock casts Eldritch Blast for the 50th time in a game. And I can, you know, say it, warlock, what are you doing? I cast Eldritch Blast. You know, like it is part of gaming is giving each other hell too. So
I realized, and it might be a theme that I find myself falling into, is with my barbarian. The next one I created Dredge, and then the next thing I did was, you know, there's some holes in that I think I could have done better.
Okay.
So then I created a barbarian, and it's on the back burner in case anything ever happens. And then, you know, the next thing I know, I'm looking at it and just going, hey, I want something that's a little crazier. So I have something just sitting in the wings, which, you know, I can share with you. You're not my DM. I don't care. Is a Simic hybrid warlock, which I actually did tell you about, and I've been working on that. And I was like, this is completely different than anything else. And I have a feeling that if I go through and ever get a chance to play with that character, the one I create after that will be another warlock. And it'll just try to be I feel like I found the holes that I didn't know were there, probably as a new player, and I tried to fill them. Well, and then I'll create something crazy.
Well, and some of that will come from while you're sitting there researching what your character can do. You know, you'll find things and go, oh man, that's really cool. But you're still reading about your character, and you go, all right, next time I'll make that choice, or next time I level, I'll do that. You know, you start to think, you know, you think 2 or 3 steps ahead, and then new stuff comes out, or you read a passage in a rule book or something, and you go, oh, man, that's really cool. I wish I would have remembered that. And that's, you know, it just kind of comes to where your eyes and your attention happens to be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right,
makes sense.
Well, do you have anything else?
I think I'm good for now. Give me a few more sessions and we'll see what happens.
So thanks for coming on and chatting from the perspective of a new gamer in the gamer Q&A. If you guys have any questions for Bill or questions for me about the questions from Bill, you guys know to leave comments below. Obviously, Bill will keep his eyes on this particular episode in particular. So be nice. Don't say mean things. Don't internet troll.
Click the bell. Troll away. Comments are gold.
Yeah, I guess you know.
Don't attack the man, the myth, the legend sitting right back over there. And that's yourself.
Thank you.
And Turkey Tom to say goodbye.
Yeah, and definitely do not make fun of Turkey Tom.
Yep.
But yeah, so for here we're gonna say goodbye to Bill, and we'll see you again in just like a couple of seconds when I move over to the other clip. So
yep.
Thank you again, Bill. This was a blast.
Thank you, everyone. Yes, it was. Thank you so much, buddy.
Well, that was pretty cool. I'm always happy to get other people's opinions and you know, keep that conversation going. Which actually reminds me, put in the comments if there's anything that you want to see in one of these Q&A from gamers. If there's a particular type of person, I've got industry friends that I can probably tap for it. I can talk to store owners. I can talk to family members. It just might be just kind of a cool thing to, you know, if you've got an idea out there of someone who might be good for one of these monthly Q&A with the gamers, let me know, and I'll start to try and make that stuff happen. Aside from that, this is the last of the November Tales from a Professional Nerd. So this is your last video to get in on the November comment raffle, which I won't lie, is a very special one. I've got something super special set off to the side for this this month's comment raffle winnings. But yeah, so aside from that, you know, it's this is the, we're getting into December. We're getting into the holidays. Stay warm if you're in a cold place. Stay cool if you're in a hot place. I don't know, but stay safe no matter what. Get vaxxed. Get boosted. Wear a mask if you have to. You know how it goes. Leave every room a little happier than when you got there, and play some games. We'll see you in a week. Hope you loved it. Bye, guys.